Imagine this. You're supposed to enjoy a calm, fragrant tea time, but instead, you're fighting for your life, surrounded by the stinkiest stench imaginable. That's exactly what happened to our girl, Nadia. She's sitting with the upper crust of society, sipping tea with fancy nobles, when suddenly she turns pale and dizzy. Why? Because their breath reeks, like gag reflex triggered level. But of course, she can't just say that out loud, so she forces a smile and pretends she's totally fine, while sweating bullets and holding back nausea. Then, things go from bad to worse. One lady's dandruff falls into her tea and another offers her a pie, with a pigeon feather stuck right in it. Triple. Combo. To avoid eating the feather pie, Nadia blurts out she's allergic. When she says she can't stand the smell of the pie, someone tries to help by spraying perfume. Now the air is a mix of bad breath, pie, and overpowering floral hell. And yep, you guessed it. Nadia passes out. Again. All she can think is, how on earth did I end up in this stinky fantasy world? Cue flashback. Back in her old life, Nadia made a snarky comment online. Something about how reincarnation romance stories are too unrealistic. She joked, I want a more realistic fantasy story. Like, I don't know, the heroine dealing with awful smells and hygiene problems. That'd be hilarious. Well, the universe heard her. Right after posting that, she got scolded by her boss for being on social media during work. Then she tripped, hit her head, and boom. When she woke up, she was in another world. A world where people have zero hygiene standards. This empire has 2 duchies. Nadia reincarnated as the second daughter of House Goldgate, one of the wealthiest noble families. She figured she'd just focus on keeping herself clean and live her best main character life. After all, how hard could it be? Very. Because then came Isaac, the family doctor, who banned her from bathing. Yep. Straight up told her she can't take a bath. Nadia nearly lost it. She begged the gods, humans, animals, anyone, to let her shower. Then, Her Majesty suggested that Lady Nadia attend the royal ball with Duke Cartane. Plot twist, the Duke said he'd only go with her if she bathes 3 times with warm water before the ball. Nadia felt like she'd been saved. Finally, a man who respects cleanliness. She got excited, asked to marry him on the spot, and even proposed a twice-a-day bath schedule. Rejected. Dream. Crushed. Worse? Her own family also told her she couldn't bathe. So now, Nadia's on a mission. To survive this unhygienic world, bathe in peace, win over the Duke, and get that squeaky-clean happy ending. All right then, let's see what Nadia has to go through just to survive in this new world. The first thing our lovely heroine, Nadia, noticed when she woke up in her new world was the smell. And no, not a whiff of roses or fresh linen. We're talking bad. Like, what just died in here? Bad. Right there in front of her, her new mom and a maid were anxiously waiting for her to wake up, their faces full of worry. And before Nadia even had time to process what was going on, her mom already pulled her into a tight, emotional hug, clearly relieved she was finally awake. Sweet, right? Except that awful stench suddenly got stronger the moment she was in her mom's arms. Like, seriously, what is that smell? At first, Nadia thought maybe she was hallucinating. But then she looked in the mirror and, yep, that was not her usual face. She even pinched herself, just in case. Nope. It hurt. She went to a temple to pray. Nada. Nothing changed. While she was sulking in pure frustration, something clicked in her mind. Could this be? Because of that comment she posted? You know, the one where she said something like, wouldn't it be fun if the story was different from the usual? Like if the MC was tormented by filth? Yeah, that one. Well, karma said bet, and now here she was, living the nightmare she joked about. Regret? Oh, absolutely. As if life wasn't chaotic enough, she caught another whiff of something nasty. This time, when she turned to look, she saw a very good-looking couple strolling down the street, right past a giant pile of poop. Actually, they stepped on it, like it was nothing. Nadia, realizing she was in real danger, immediately looked around for a place to hide. But no luck. The couple spotted her first, and to her horror, they walked over and greeted her. They were approaching, and fast. Nadia, barely holding herself together, tried her best to reply politely, but she was fighting for her life here. She could feel the vomit rising. The couple, totally unaware, looked concerned and asked if she was okay. Desperate, Nadia said she was fine, but instead of leaving, they stepped even closer. Nadia panicked and quickly held up her hand, warning them, No, stay back, it's for your own good. Though, honestly, the danger was to herself, not them. And then, a sudden gust of wind carried the stench straight to her soul. She passed out. Again, dramatically, heroically, no hesitation. When she finally regained consciousness, again, Nadia lay there wondering, is it just me? Or are these people nose dead? She was lost in thought. Then, suddenly, a miracle. She smelled flowers, real fragrant flowers. She sat up to see a stunning girl standing nearby. Arwen, the eldest daughter of the Goldgate family and commander of the Imperial Knights. Yep, that's her new big sister. Arwen had brought flowers for Nadia after hearing that she wanted some. With a face full of worry, Arwen said she heard Nadia fainted while she was with the Crown Prince. She even added that their younger brother Lupin was worried too, but couldn't leave work because, well, he's a mage. Arwen hugged her and said gently, I want to stay by your side and protect you. Your health and happiness are what matter most to our family. At that moment, the reality of her new life hit Nadia like a soft, warm hug, and maybe also a ton of bricks. Her sister was a knight commander and heir to a duchy. Her brother was a powerful mage. And she, Nadia, was the beloved middle child of House Goldgate. Not just any noble house, mind you. One of 2 dukedoms in the entire empire. Thinking it over, she had to admit. She had loving parents, a huge house, kind and attentive staff. Honestly, she'd reincarnated into a pretty dang good life. Except for one thing. The smell. She could live with everything else. But this stink? Why was it so hard to survive here? But then she remembered, this is a romance fantasy novel, right? So there has to be a male lead. And once she meets him, maybe, just maybe, love would save her nose from this cruel reality. With that hopeful thought, Nadia's spirits soared. She jumped out of bed, full of energy, thinking, I gotta be ready when I meet him. But wait, where the heck was this mysterious male lead supposed to be hiding? Oh well, first things first. She needed a bath. She had to smell amazing when their fateful encounter happened. Noticing Nadia getting out of bed, Arwen asked, Where are you going? Nadia cheerfully replied, I'm going to take a bath. I feel all sticky. Arwen's face turned white. She looked panicked. But before she could even finish her warning, Nadia opened the door. And boom, there he was. A gorgeous man with dreamy features that screamed male lead vibes. Nadia's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Did she really meet him this fast? His name was Isaac Dalton, the family doctor of House Goldgate. Nadia, already swooning, gave him the brightest smile and invited him in. Come on in, I'll just go freshen up real quick. But suddenly, Isaac grabbed her hand. Yep. He grabbed her. Nadia's heart did a somersault. A man who's this bold? She was all in. He gently pulled her back into the room and said, You're not allowed to bathe. She was totally bewitched. Just followed him like a puppy, no questions asked. Isaac had her lie back down and with the calmest face ever said, You're strictly forbidden to take a bath. It didn't quite register at first, until it did. Nadia sat up, shook. What did you just say? Isaac calmly explained, You keep fainting because you bathe too much. It hit her like lightning. She wasn't hearing things. She wasn't allowed to bathe. Her body froze. Her soul screamed. And her voice? Her scream was so loud the entire estate probably heard it. Dr. Isaac doubled down. The only possible cause of your fainting is bathing. Nadia froze. Wait, is my male lead a total quack? She tried to reason with him. But I haven't washed my hair in 2 days. Isaac raised an eyebrow. Exactly. Still clean as a whistle. Okay, that backfired. She tried another angle. Then what if I told you I haven't taken a bath in a week? Isaac nodded solemnly. Which is precisely why you lost consciousness. Nadia was done. Done with logic. Done with everything. I feel like my entire body is being eaten by invisible bugs, she cried. Isaac tilted his head and replied calmly, That's most unfortunate. But better to be itchy than dead, no? Itchiness never killed anyone. And that was the final straw. Her head throbbed from frustration. Big Sis Arwen thought it was a migraine and ordered a full recheck. Isaac, of course, said it was just the side effect of bathing and that Nadia needed absolute rest. Nadia didn't even have the strength to argue anymore. This time she'd lost, completely, undeniably. Lying back in bed, she started reflecting. Sure, she was the main character of a romance fantasy story, but if she stayed too stubborn, she might never find her destined love. Maybe all she needed was a little patience. Wait for the right moment to bring up the topic of bathing again. Until then, she had no choice but to endure. Isaac gently touched her forehead to check her temperature. Nadia flinched. Why? Because his perfume was so strong it practically slapped her in the face. Her head throbbed harder. Seeing her reaction, Isaac frowned with concern. Are you feeling worse? Nadia quickly looked away and mumbled, Just a little dizzy. Dizzy from the eau de death he was wearing, but hey, no need to explain that. Isaac moved his face even closer. His eyes locked onto hers and he said softly, You might have a fever, but you'll be fine with enough rest. Sure, her cheeks were flushed, but not from sickness. It was because, hello? His face was way too close. After thanking Viscount Dalton, aka Isaac, Arwen suddenly threw in a surprise. She wanted him to tag along to the north as Nadia's private doctor. Wait, north? Nadia blinked. Arwen smiled and explained. They'd been invited to attend the Festival of Prosperity, and since she'd be escorting Her Majesty, she thought Nadia could use the time away to recuperate. The Festival of Prosperity was held every year during the late summer to early fall, hosted by the Empress herself. It was a big deal. Nobles would gather, pray for a rich harvest, and show off their family's honor. The Goldgates always participated, like good, well-mannered nobles. Nadia hesitated, worried she'd be more of a burden than help. But Arwen, as always, promised to stay by her side the entire time. Ah, big sis goals, dashing, ravishing, and oh so charming. To make sure she had the right picture, Nadia asked if the north was a large region with fewer people than the capital. Arwen confirmed it was. Originally a vast stretch of wasteland, the area had been settled by the Cartane family and slowly turned into a livable region. It was cold and dry, with fresh air that was tolerable this time of year. Just a little windy. Cold. Dry. Windy? Nadia's heart soared. That means fewer smells. I'm in. Fast forward to departure day. Nadia was ready for a nice breezy trip. What she got was a tornado. The moment wind started howling, Arwen jumped into action. All able knights, redirect the current with your aura. I'll shield our carriage. She ordered the rest to protect Her Majesty and the ladies no matter what. Inside the carriage, things were getting bumpy. The Empress didn't look so good. Nadia, being polite and possibly delusional from motion sickness, offered her shoulder. The Empress was touched by her kindness. Nadia? She was trying not to pass out from the smell, but of course, with a weak smile, she muttered, I'm fine. Suddenly, the tornado struck the carriage hard. The door flew off. Literally. Nadia and the Empress just stared at it like, well, there it goes. Then came Nadia's bright idea. She gripped the windowsill and yelled, "I'll block the wind from getting in." The Empress warned her, "That's dangerous." But Nadia flashed a grin. "No worries. I'm blessed with good luck. No way I'm getting blown." She didn't even finish her sentence. She was gone, yeeted by a tornado into the sky. Meanwhile, not too far away, two men on horseback were riding through the area. One of them suddenly looked up and said, "Is that a person flying toward us?" It was. It was Nadia, face frozen in panic, arms flailing midair. Whump. Luckily, one of the horsemen, tall, handsome, chiseled jawline and all, caught her like a total badass. The other guy blinked. "Wait, did we just catch a person?" The hero replied, "Nope. We caught a beast." With her eyes still shut, Nadia felt weirdly thankful she'd landed on what she assumed was a tree. But then, she heard a guy's voice. Something about catching a monster. Or at least some kind of flying creature. Wait a second. Tree? Turns out she hadn't landed on a tree at all. She had landed straight into the lap of a very handsome man. Mortified, she tried to get off immediately. Thankfully, he was already planning to put her down too. But right before she could move, another violent gust of wind swept past them. So nope. No getting off unless she wanted to become airborne again. The handsome stranger calmly told her to hold on tight. Then, in the most dramatic fashion possible, he pulled out his sword and slashed at the wind. Yeah, he cut the wind. And somehow it worked. The air stilled in an instant, and he told her it was safe to open her eyes again. Nadia peeked around cautiously, then asked if the wind was really gone. He confirmed. The tornado had been neutralized. Relieved, Nadia broke into a bright smile. But the guy's face? Let's just say he didn't look too thrilled. Maybe he was annoyed she hadn't thanked him yet. So Nadia, ever the sunshine girl, flashed her sweetest smile and said something cute and polite to show her appreciation. Instead of smiling back, the guy just sighed and looked at her like she was something gross stuck to his shoe. He even muttered under his breath, clearly disgusted. Nadia was shook. She was used to being the one who got grossed out by others. Not the other way around. Still looking like she'd ruined his day, the guy told her to get off. Unless she was, physically incapable of walking. Harsh much? And this is where things got Nadia. Without warning, she grabbed his arm and straight up sniffed him. Yes. She sniffed the man. He froze, rightfully disturbed. Because in modern times, Nadia would have been canceled instantly. But she just calmly said she was checking something real quick. You know, just doing a smell test. And to her shock, he didn't smell like anything. No odor, no sour sweat, no trace of stink. For the first time since waking up in this world, Nadia felt at peace. This was her safe zone. The man, however, was fuming. He reminded her, again, that he was very uncomfortable with everything she was doing. Finally realizing she'd gone way too far, Nadia quickly apologized. She had definitely crossed a line. And really, if you were that guy, what would you even think of her? Before things got any weirder, Nadia heard someone calling her name. It was Arwen, rushing over with her knights, and Her Majesty right behind her. They'd come to check on her. Nadia waved cheerfully, yelling out that she was fine. Actually, better than fine, considering she'd just found the first man in this world who didn't smell like sewage. But right as she said that, her heel accidentally pressed into the horse's side. The horse freaked out, and Nadia almost flew off again. Arwen saw everything and gasped, but once again the handsome stranger moved faster than anyone, grabbing Nadia mid-fall and pulling her right back into his lap. Melting? Yes. Dying? Also yes. Internally, Nadia was screaming. The man told her, a little too seriously, that horses were sensitive creatures and could be dangerous if startled. He also made a not-so-subtle comment about how lucky she was to be born into aristocracy, because anyone else acting like this would have been thrown off a cliff by now. Nadia suddenly remembered what she'd done just minutes ago, grabbing and sniffing a complete stranger like a total creep. She was mortified. Blushing hard, she apologized again, but the guy didn't even respond. He was too busy brushing dust off his clothes, like even a second of contact with her had contaminated his outfit. Ouch. Arwen finally reached her and rushed off her horse to check if Nadia was hurt. Nadia told her she was fine, thanks to this incredibly rude but undeniably heroic man. The other rider, Herzan Bey, who turned out to be the savior's aide, quickly recapped the chaos. A tornado hit the carriage and Nadia got launched like a rag doll. Then Her Majesty approached and addressed the handsome stranger formally. Duke Cartane. She thanked him for arriving just in time. Duke. Wait, what? That was Duke Cartane? As in, Claude Cartane, the legendary war hero who defended the North from monster invasions? The one who inherited the Cartane dukedom? Nadia's brain short-circuited for a second. She'd expected the Duke to be old and wrinkly, like every stereotypical Duke in stories. But this guy? He was young. He was powerful. He was hot. And most importantly, he didn't smell. At that moment, Nadia's mind made 3 very important conclusions. 1. Duke Cartane was definitely the same age as the female lead. 2. He was already a war hero and a duke. 3. He passed the sniff test with flying colors. Clearly, this man wasn't just anyone. He was the male lead. Sorry, Isaac. You've been demoted. From that moment on, Nadia made her decision. Duke Claude Cartane would be her new target, the hero who would save her life and her nose. Arwen thanked Duke Cartane for saving her oh-so-fragile little sister. Nadia was slightly offended. Fragile? Okay. Maybe she was a little weak, but only when it came to bad smells. And just as Arwen was being all grateful, she turned to the Duke with that iconic sharp gaze of hers and told him to apologize. For earlier. You know, the moment he called Nadia crazy and said she was just lucky to be born noble. From Arwen's perspective, this beastly, intimidating man had straight up insulted her precious baby sister. So naturally, she wasn't a fan. Of course, Arwen had only caught the end of the situation. She didn't see the full show. Like the part where Nadia acted like a sniff-happy puppy all over Duke Cartane's wonderfully scentless body. Remembering that, Nadia started to worry. What if her romance story was already doomed by a giant misunderstanding? Thankfully, the Duke's aide swooped in and suggested a brilliant solution. Why not let the Duke escort Lady Nadia back to the estate? Perfect idea, especially considering her carriage door had literally been yeeted by a tornado. But instead of nodding and smiling, both Arwen and the Duke immediately said no, like aggressively. Arwen, offended, assumed he was refusing because he didn't think her sister was worth the effort. The Duke, meanwhile, figured Arwen would never allow it anyway, since she clearly disliked him. And just like that, they went from arguing against it to arguing for it. Now they were practically fighting for the right to escort Nadia. Her Majesty, watching from the side, was highly entertained. Eventually, the Duke's aide declared the matter settled. Both parties agreed, even though they never actually said yes. Still, Her Majesty supported the idea and gently nudged Arwen to go along with it. After all, Arwen was going to be busy guarding her for the rest of the trip. But in the end, it was Nadia's opinion that mattered most. When the question came her way, she blinked, caught off guard. Then, hesitantly, she said yes. As he helped her onto his horse, Duke Cartane apologized for being harsh earlier. Nadia, of course, said she was the one who should be apologizing. I mean, she did sniff him like a weirdo. He took the reins and politely informed her they were heading out. Nadia's heart pounded. She was now seated very close to the man who might just be her fate. Trying to stay cool, she thanked him for taking her back. And off they went. Once they arrived at the estate, the Duke brought up something important. The tornado this year had been unusually strong, so he suggested changing the festival route. Instead of starting from Xionia and touring the north before returning to Nadan, it might be safer to head straight to Nadan first. Her Majesty frowned a little. That would mean Nadan wouldn't receive her blessing at the peak of the season. But the Duke explained, the safety of the party came first. Now, traditionally, the Empress's blessing was the heart of the entire Festival of Prosperity. People believed it was what brought abundant harvests. It was also a chance to show the strength of noble ties with the imperial family. So yeah, this wasn't a light decision for the Duke to make, especially since he governed the harsh northern regions. As all this intense discussion was happening, Nadia was just happily munching on a Madeleine. Arwen, of course, stayed sharp and declared the Goldgate family would help make preparations for the revised festival. Her Majesty agreed and praised Arwen for being reliable as ever. Meanwhile, the little sister in question was getting emotional, because the Madeleine tasted amazing. Eventually, Her Majesty made the official call. They would follow Duke Cartane's suggestion. She wasn't about to risk her people's safety. And while everyone else was focused on the future of the Empire, Nadia was thinking about how to reach that one lonely Madeleine left on the far end of the table. So close, yet so far. Just as she was struggling to reach it, Duke Cartane silently pushed the plate toward her. So smooth, so casual. Then he turned his head away like nothing happened and asked Her Majesty what suggestions she'd like to propose. Her Majesty, smiling, shared her idea. They would move the Imperial Ball to the first day of the season and host it here. And wouldn't it be lovely if Nadia and Duke Cartane attended together? The air froze. Both Nadia and the Duke were speechless, so shocked that the plate of Madeleines she'd been eyeing tipped over and scattered everywhere. The Duke asked carefully, "Do you mean escort Lady Nadia to the ball?" Her Majesty nodded. Yes, exactly. She reminded them that the Cartanes and Goldgates were the two main pillars of the imperial household. What better way to honor the occasion? In her mind, she was already picturing a romantic slow dance between the two of them. Sparkles, music, maybe even a kiss. Nadia, who absolutely couldn't dance, tried to deflect, suggesting that Arwen would be a better fit. But Arwen couldn't. She had to stay at Her Majesty's side all evening as her guard. Meanwhile, Duke Cartane tried to dodge the event entirely. He wasn't a fan of crowds, and he offered a compromise. What if they kept the ball at the end of the season instead, so there was no need to break tradition? Her Majesty didn't even blink. She said she was fine breaking tradition. Let's just call it her way of showing appreciation for the Duke's grace. Basically, they weren't allowed to say no. On one side, Nadia wanted to refuse because she couldn't dance. On the other, the Duke didn't want to go because he hated big events. Tension rose, until Arwen stepped in. She told Nadia she didn't mind. Actually, she'd be happy to see her little sister dance again. Coming from Arwen, who was always so calm and cool, those words hit hard. Nadia's heart melted. She almost forgot she couldn't dance. The Duke finally agreed, but only under one condition. Arwen had to leave all the preparations to his people. His maids would take care of everything. The gown, the accessories, the whole makeover. And most importantly, he wanted Nadia to bathe. 3 full times, with warm water, before the ball. Arwen looked deeply offended, as if the Duke had just insulted the entire Goldgate family. From her perspective, the Duke was being unreasonable. Nadia was too weak to bathe. That was literally why she kept passing out. But Nadia? She was trembling, not out of fear, out of pure joy. This was it, her moment. Right in the middle of the growing argument, she slammed her hands on the table and shouted that she had something to say. Her eyes sparkled. Her heart raced. 3 baths. 3 glorious hot baths. She didn't even think twice. She stood up and declared, "I'm in love." Everyone froze. Duke Cartane and Arwen looked like they'd seen a ghost. Her Majesty, meanwhile, smiled sweetly, clearly amused. What Nadia meant was that she was deeply, emotionally, spiritually in love with baths. She just forgot to finish the sentence. When Nadia suddenly slammed the table and declared she was in love, the entire room froze. Arwen and Duke Cartane were straight up stunned. Only Her Majesty looked absolutely delighted, eyes sparkling with excitement. Arwen, trying to stay composed, immediately asked the obvious. In love with who, exactly? Meanwhile, Duke Cartane, though visibly shocked, tried to play it cool by sipping his tea. Her Majesty, positively glowing, was clearly hoping Nadia was in love with the very same person she had in mind. Oh, the romance. Surrounded by curious stares, Nadia felt totally cornered. Her brain worked overtime, trying to find a way out. She was in love, but not with a person. With hygiene. Yeah, baths, cleanliness, hot water. But she couldn't say that out loud. They'd lock her up for sure. So she did the next best thing. She took a deep breath, puffed up her courage, and shouted, I'm in love with His Grace, Duke Cartane. Cue immediate tea explosion. The Duke, who had just taken a sip, spat it right out. Well, there was no turning back now. Nadia went full throttle with the performance. She told everyone that ever since he saved her, she just knew. They were meant to be. Soulmates. Fated partners. Was she dying of secondhand embarrassment while saying it? Absolutely. But admitting she was in love with baths would have been worse. She threw a quick apology to Arwen for the chaos and tried to explain. It was a confusing time, and things had just escalated. When her eyes accidentally locked with the Duke's, both of them instantly looked away like nervous teenagers. Nadia mentally scolded herself. Well, you spilled the milk, girl. Now mop it up. Besides, she needed to secure her place as the Duke's ball partner, aka her golden bath ticket. Trying to smooth things over, Nadia turned to Arwen and apologized again. Arwen, ever the big sister watchdog, asked if Nadia was seriously planning to attend the ball with the Duke, even if it meant putting herself at risk by bathing 3 times. Nadia reassured her gently. She understood how much her family cared about her health, but she really wanted to dance with the Duke, which of course meant she really wanted to bathe. 3 times, with warm water, in peace. Nadia even pointed out that she'd made it this far without fainting. Not once. No fever either. She was ready to face the challenge. No more running. She was entering a new, cleaner chapter of her life. Surprisingly, her heartfelt and slightly dramatic speech worked. Arwen started to soften. And not just Arwen. Her Majesty looked genuinely touched, her eyes glistening with emotion. Arwen finally agreed to accept Duke Cartane's terms. With one condition. Nadia's physical condition would be monitored every time she bathed. By their family doctor. If even the slightest symptom appeared, bathing would be banned again. Would Duke Cartane accept that? Nadia held her breath, sweating bullets. After a pause, the Duke agreed. Nadia lit up like a Christmas tree. So did Her Majesty, but they were clearly celebrating very different things. Just then, the Duke's aide politely interrupted. The Duke checked his watch, subtly reminding everyone that it was getting late. Meanwhile, Nadia's eyes drifted to the poor Madeline that had fallen earlier. She didn't realize the Duke was watching her. Her Majesty decided it was time to leave and gracefully took her leave. Nadia quickly ran after her and Arwen, but before she could catch up, she was stopped. Duke Cartane stepped in front of her. Oh no. What now? He calmly said there was still something between them that needed to be settled. Nadia's whole body went into panic mode. Blushing like mad, she turned to face him. He asked directly, was she truly in love with him? Nadia's brain exploded. Was he seriously asking that? But if he wanted an answer, well, she could commit to the bit. She struck a pose and declared it again, with finger guns. Yup, full-on pew-pew energy. Still nothing from the Duke. No reaction, no smile, not even a twitch. Was her acting not good enough? All right, fine. Time to go bigger. Nadia threw in a heart pose, then a sultry wink, then a dramatic air kiss. She tilted her head, made her eyes sparkle, and declared it again, from the bottom of her heart. Still hoping that'd be enough to convince him. But Duke Cartane? He just sighed, turned around, and slammed the door behind him as he walked away. Oof. Nadia stood frozen, rejected, publicly, brutally. She felt her soul leave her body. Her mind spiraled into chaos. What if he kicked her out of the estate before the ball? What if she didn't even get to bathe? Now that was the real tragedy. Nadia was absolutely radiating joy. Finally, she got to take a proper bath. In Duke Cartane's legendary bathroom, no less. The bathtub shimmered like it was filled with magic potion, and everything around sparkled like it had been cleaned by angels with OCD. It felt surreal. She was seriously about to cry over bathwater. Overwhelmed, she didn't even bother thinking. She jumped right in. Water everywhere. She splashed like a toddler at a theme park. At some point, she'd totally forgotten how long it had been since her last real bath. In the middle of her aquatic celebration, she finally noticed a maid standing there, silently watching her chaos unfold like it was an exhibit. Mortified, Nadia froze. The maid, however, stayed cool, offering to toss in some dried lavender like nothing weird was happening. Turns out the maid's name was Julianne, and she was officially in charge of Nadia's bath time needs. With grace, she sprinkled the lavender in, while Nadia quickly tried to cover herself with whatever dignity she had left. No more floating around like a naked goddess. It was time to act noble. Still, the happiness bubbling inside her couldn't be stopped. She was floating, not just in the tub, but emotionally too. Even better, she remembered she still had 2 more baths scheduled after this. Pure bliss. But then, a dangerous thought struck her. If she wanted to keep enjoying this level of squeaky cleanliness, there was only one path forward: marry the Duke. Her brain went full fantasy mode. There she was, walking down the aisle, holding Duke Cartane's hand. Not for love or duty, but for lifelong bath access. Instead of a wedding night, they'd be clinking bath salts. Instead of I do, it was, let's bathe forever. The dream. In her overly indulgent daydreaming, she accidentally bumped the little bell beside the tub, sending a gentle chime through the room. Julianne reappeared instantly, thinking she'd been called. Nope, Nadia was just deep in soapy delusion. Whoops. Her heart thumped with a weird excitement, thinking how wonderful life would be if she could really bathe like this every day. Bonus points if Duke Cartane joined, of course. After the bath, it was time for her checkup with Isaac, the ever-diligent physician. He wanted to make sure she wasn't dizzy, itchy, or suffering any weird symptoms. Thankfully, she felt totally fine. Except for the water still sloshing around inside her ears. But that wasn't a symptom. It was because she dunked her entire head underwater out of pure bath time enthusiasm. Classic Nadia. Isaac, however, was concerned enough to perform a thorough hearing test. She played along, repeating words like squirrel, rabbit, and chick after him. Problem was, his voice was dangerously dreamy. The way he leaned in to whisper made her cheeks go hot. No hearing issues detected. Unless getting flustered counts as one. And honestly, Nadia was low-key, disappointed the test ended so fast. That voice? Addicting. Isaac reminded her to be cautious about infections and to stay alert. But he assured her that as long as she was under his watch, she was safe. His words were laced with this subtle charm. Caring, soft, almost too gentle for her heart to handle. And Nadia mentally was like, yeah, I don't know much about that. But what I do know is, you're super hot, sir. Isaac truly sparkled. Like, physically. Maybe it was the lighting. Or maybe it was just him. Nadia suddenly brought up another worry. Something beyond just baths. Isaac nodded knowingly. He mentioned her frailty since the beginning and that strange rumors had been circulating about Duke Cartane. Now that grabbed her attention. Apparently, people believed the Duke had been acting oddly ever since returning from war. Some claimed he was obsessively clean, bathing excessively, even bothering the staff to clean places that were already spotless. Isaac assumed these were smear tactics. Still, he advised Nadia to keep some distance. But Nadia had heard whispers too. Just days ago, while she was out picking flowers, mainly to protect her nostrils from the ballroom's questionable air, she'd overheard a conversation. It was Duke Cartane and his aide, Herzan. The Duke had been scolding Herzan for stepping out of line. That was already spicy. But then, Herzan mentioned Nadia. Said she was the first woman the Duke had gotten that close to. Intriguing, right? The Duke's answer wasn't exactly romantic, though. He claimed it was due to circumstances beyond his control. Fair. It's not like anyone expects girls to fall out of the sky into their lives. Herzan then suggested the Duke stop bathing so much. Gossip was getting out of control. People were saying he had developed extreme bathing habits post-war. To make matters worse, he was interfering with the maids during their cleaning rounds. Duke Cartane didn't deny it. He admitted the rumors weren't entirely false. Nadia, still eavesdropping like a pro, wanted to know more. What exactly had happened to him on the battlefield to turn him into a soap opera? Herzan continued. Apparently, the Duke's parents were desperate to get him married. Before gossip spread even further, they wanted him to settle down. Right before Herzan could finish that thought, the Duke snapped. He yelled, "Enough!" looking like he'd had enough family pressure for a lifetime. And then, cue dramatic moment, he ripped open his shirt. Abstract sculpted, glorious. Nadia, who was still hiding and peeking, nearly fainted. Handsome face, perfect body. Unfair. The Duke, drenched in sweat from training, requested a bath again. Naturally. Then, he turned in Nadia's direction. Did he hear something? She nearly screamed. Busted? No. Miraculously, she escaped discovery. Close call. But her heart ached a little. The Duke had to suppress his own standards just to maintain his reputation. It was kinda sad. Maybe noble? She told Isaac later that she worried the rumors might hurt the Duke's image. The guy was a war hero after all. Shouldn't he be getting applause instead of side eyes? She then panicked. Maybe she sounded like she was lecturing Isaac? But he didn't take offense. If anything, he was just worried for her. He reminded her of how she used to always talk to him back then. They must have been really close in the past. After all that, Nadia felt weirdly hopeful. The gossip didn't scare her. It made her feel like she understood the Duke a little more. Maybe he really was the only one who could save her in this world. And maybe she could save him too. Only one question remained. What did he think about her? Cue full-blown flashbacks of every awkward moment she'd had with him so far. Mortifying. But she shook it off. She was determined to make up for everything. She had a secret weapon after all. Belief. Guts. And a very strong desire to bathe. The long-awaited ball finally arrived. Today was the day. Julianne had everything ready just the way Nadia asked. Absolutely perfect. The mission could proceed. Freshly trimmed flowers sat in neat bundles, their petals scattered across jewelry, perfume bottles, and every little trinket laid out. From necklaces to earrings, everything was dusted in blooms like the world's most over-the-top flower shop. Julianne even said Nadia looked stunning. Nadia, ever the modest one, or maybe fishing for more compliments, tilted her head as if to ask, "Really?" Julianne didn't hold back. She said Nadia looked like a walking bouquet. And honestly, she wasn't wrong. From head to toe, Nadia was covered in flowers. 3 baths had left her impossibly fresh. Her gown smelled heavenly after its scented laundering, and the real blossoms sewn into the fabric were ready to protect her from the foul odors lurking in the ballroom. When she finally arrived at the ball, Nadia couldn't help but admire her own scent. She swished her skirt just to spread it around like a personal air freshener. Success. Her floral armor was working. Her Majesty took her place on the throne, stepping forward with a bundle of wheat in her hands. She declared the festival of prosperity officially begun in Nadan, the heart of the north, blessing the ruler of the land with hopes for endless fortune. Claude Cartane, Duke Cartane, stepped forward to receive it. He accepted the blessing with a promise to honor it. And then, to Nadia's surprise, he approached her, offering his hand with that impossibly composed charm of his. They began to dance. He asked if she was nervous, and maybe she wasn't. At least, not about the crowd. More about dancing with someone so dangerously handsome and, most importantly, not smelly. He claimed he wasn't great at dancing, afraid she'd end up leading. Nadia didn't buy it. If anything, he was smooth enough to make her trust herself completely to his arm. The audience seemed to think so too, clapping and cheering them on, even calling her graceful. Which was hilarious, because she hadn't even known how to dance when she first landed in this world. Just as she was feeling secure, it happened. The smell. That awful, suffocating stench crept into the air. Both Nadia and the Duke winced, stomachs churning. People started edging closer, curious and smiling, and Nadia was practically screaming inside, begging them to stay away. The Duke looked worse than she did. Understandable, given his hygiene standards were sky high. Then came the final blow. A man with soaked armpits charging toward the Duke for a warm reunion hug. The Duke's composure cracked. Nadia knew he was seconds from gagging. Instinct took over. She grabbed him, pulling him close enough to make onlookers blush and silently chant for a kiss. Instead, she plucked a fresh flower from her hair and tucked it into his pocket, letting its fragrance shield him. Still holding him close, she leaned in with a conspiratorial air before steering him toward the balcony. They slipped outside like escapees from a perfumed prison. Finally, fresh air. The Duke, curious, asked what she meant earlier about also being bothered. So she listed them. The dirt under Count Tail's nails, the dandruff flakes decorating Viscountess Jennet's shoulders, and of course, the putrid haze wafting through the ballroom. He wanted to know if she truly felt the same or was just pretending. Nadia, ever prepared, pulled out her homemade toothpaste, roasted salt and ground peppermint, crafted with her whole heart, and reminded him about the real flowers sewn into her gown for odor defense. That was enough proof for him. He even apologized for being overly suspicious. In that moment, the two of them shared an unspoken understanding. They were both borderline obsessive about cleanliness. The Duke admitted that many had tried to stop him from bathing so often, even calling him unwell after the battlefield, blaming his frequent baths on blood-soaked trauma. Nadia didn't see it as a flaw. If anything, she found it encouraging. Now there were two of them, and that should make him feel less alone. He smiled. Yes, smiled. The cold, heartless Duke actually smiled at her. He guessed she must get the same kind of judgment from people around her. His own parents had even told him no woman would want a man who bathed every day. Nadia, impulsive as ever, grabbed his hand. Her grand solution? Marriage. That way they could bathe twice a day without anyone interfering. And just like that, the Duke found himself stunned. Again. Still riding the high from the ballroom, Nadia boldly took the Duke's hand and gave him what she thought was the ultimate offer of the century: marriage with the bonus of 2 baths a day. Reasonable? Absolutely. Romantic? Well, that depends on who you ask. But Duke Cartane just stayed silent. Not even a twitch. Was she rejected? Thinking she needed to up her game, Nadia released his hand and, without a shred of shame, dropped to one knee right in front of him. Out came her secret weapon. Not a ring, not a heartfelt letter, but a homemade sea salt and mint toothpaste. Improvised, sure, but knowing how squeaky clean the Duke was, this was basically worth more than a diamond. The Duke froze, his face unreadable. Was he shocked because a woman just proposed to him? Because she did it in the middle of the night? Or because she used toothpaste instead of a ring? Hard to tell. Finally, he spoke, calling her an interesting person, which sounded promising, until that dreaded but. He wasn't sure 2 baths a day would help. And besides, it would be wasteful. Water wasteful? Since when do aristocrats care about water supply? And then came the real hit. He couldn't accept her proposal because, well, they didn't even know each other. Ouch. Standing there under the night sky with the wind brushing past her, Nadia was officially rejected. Still, he admitted that she had caught his attention in more ways than one. And in an annoyingly romantic twist, a single flower petal drifted down and landed in her hair. The Duke plucked it away, keeping the conversation going as if they weren't in the middle of her heartbreak. He knew she might be the only one who truly understood him. But if finding a wife was simply about someone understanding his bathing habits, he could just host a bathing contest. He appreciated her spirit, though, before apologizing once more and confirming his answer. The only thing he accepted from Nadia that night was the flower she'd given him at the ball to save him. The night ended in defeat. She felt humiliated, not just because his reason made sense, but because her heart was still doing a full-on marathon inside her chest from the way he'd complimented that flower. And this was supposed to be a romance fantasy world. Where were the endless chances for love? The dramatic rescues followed by falling in love? The marriage of convenience that obviously ends in love? Instead, she got a northern region duke with common sense. But Nadia wasn't the type to give up after one no. That same night, she paced back and forth outside his room, rehearsing scenarios, from heartfelt confessions to bold requests for permission to court him, all as excuses to secure her stay in his palace. Once she felt ready, she knocked. The Duke's voice invited her in. The room was exactly what she'd imagined. Immaculate, fragrant, not a single speck of dust in sight. What she hadn't imagined was the Duke stepping out of the bathroom in a bathrobe, hair still damp, and, oh dear God, abs. Perfect, carved, high-definition abs. Thinking it was his aide who'd walked in, he started talking without looking. Until he did. And there she was, Lady Nadia, trying and failing to cover her face, peeking through her fingers. He straightened his robe and led her to the sitting area, asking her business there. Nadia froze for a moment, every scenario she'd planned evaporating from her brain. Nerves kicking in, she blurted the first thing that came to mind. Of all things to ask the Duke in the middle of the night. She wanted to know what he knew about love. Nadia, still buzzing with stubborn determination, asked to stay in the north longer, so she and Duke Cartane could get to know each other. And by get to know, she meant relentlessly pursue until he falls head over heels. The Duke, ever the cautious man, double-checked. Is that really what you want? Obviously, she said yes. And before he could even respond, she added another request, permission to court him during her stay. Bold move, Nadia. Respect. Duke's eyes narrowed, clearly annoyed. But instead of shutting her down completely, he agreed. With conditions. She could stay at the Cartane estate until Her Majesty's tour ended, as repayment for what happened at the ball. But first, she'd have to get Arwen's approval. Small problem. Arwen hates Duke Cartane. Nadia, undeterred, accepted the terms. And because she can't help herself, she pointed out that she'd noticed the flower she gave the Duke at the ball was still sitting in a vase in his room. Oh, the joy. She practically floated out of there humming like a lovesick heroine, while Duke, Mr. Cold-Hearted himself, actually chuckled watching her leave. A few days later, our determined lady was training with a sword. She took her stance, swung with all her might, and clunk. The sword went flying. Her 3 spectators just stared. At least no one lost an eye. Her hands were trembling like she hadn't eaten in days. Sliding to the ground, she started crying, not sure if it was from embarrassment or sheer frustration at how hopeless she was with the blade. Enter Arwen, radiating big sister energy and zero patience. She reminded Nadia that it wasn't too late to give up on this ridiculous decision. But Nadia? Give up? Never. So Arwen cranked up the difficulty. 15 more sets of diagonal swings. Nadia's arms were shaking, her core screaming, but she pushed through. Arwen, deep down, was worried. She didn't know the real reason Nadia was putting herself through this. That in a world full of stink, Duke Cartane was her only hope for a hygienic happily ever after. Flashback. When Nadia first asked Arwen to let her stay longer, Arwen thought she'd misheard. Staying just for that man? And she still remembered that time she overheard part of a conversation where she thought Duke insulted Nadia. Another massive misunderstanding. Arwen had never liked Claude Cartane, but kept it polite because they were both knights. After what she thought was him using Nadia for his own benefit, her dislike solidified. She didn't know Nadia wasn't sick from bathing. It was the world's stench that nearly did her in. Back to the present. 5 swings left. 13, 14, 15. She hit all the marks only to stumble and collapse right in front of her sister. Arwen lectured her again about being too weak to be left alone in the north. Her voice firm, but her concern obvious. Nadia, still catching her breath, asked if proving her strength would earn Arwen's blessing. Arwen agreed, but the test would be a duel. Against her. A duel. With Arwen, the sister who just made her collapse. Still, Nadia accepted. Arwen scheduled it for 2 weeks later and left the rest of her training in the hands of Sir Joel. On her way out, she crossed paths with Duke Cartane. Tension. You could cut it with a sword. Duke suggested Arwen should take it easy on her sister. Her hands were shaking like leaves. Arwen shot back that it wasn't his concern and brushed past him without a second glance. Moments later, she found Isaac and asked him to take care of Nadia's hands after training. Because yes, Arwen's exterior might be steel, but her heart? All little sister protection mode. Nadia's training continued. The duel was set. 2 weeks. She'd either earn her place in the north or be sent packing. From the moment the birds started chirping, Nadia was already getting tortured. Trained by Sir Joel. And when I say no mercy, I mean no mercy. The deal was simple. Push harder, or he'd tack on more sets. And somehow, that last set kept turning into, well, another last set, and another. Nadia's energy tank hit 0, but Sir Joel? Oh, he was perfectly fine, sipping tea like he was at a spa. He even tossed her a great job before casually telling her to hit again. Last one, he said. Sure, every single time was last one. By the time her hands were trembling, watching him enjoy his tea while she suffered lit a little fire in her, that fire turned into full-blown rage. She snapped. Sir Joel dropped his cup, and for the first time that morning, he called it a day, looking half impressed, half terrified, like he was afraid she'd smack him next. He bolted, leaving Nadia collapsing in a heap. Somewhere in the distance, Duke Cartane and his aide Herdzan were watching like they were at a sports match, quietly discussing something about her. Later, back at the palace, Herdzan reported to the Duke that Nadia's been through some seriously brutal training lately. Probably too brutal, and suggested maybe they should reject her request altogether. The Duke didn't answer right away, so Herdzan asked if he was even listening. That earned him a glare sharp enough to slice bread. Herdzan panicked, backpedaled, and said to just forget what he said. Turns out, the Duke never meant for Nadia to fight Arwen in the first place. He only told her to ask Arwen for permission. Now he felt like he was being blamed for something. Herdzan swore he wasn't blaming anyone, just worried about Nadia's condition. He was dismissed. Duke wanted to bathe again. Because of course the god of cleanliness bathes constantly. But while soaking, Herdzan's words replayed in his head. Concern and pity? For Nadia? Why? That's when he heard voices from outside his bathroom window. There she was, Nadia, hobbling alongside her maid Julianne, who kept spritzing her head with perfume like that was going to fix anything. Duke kept watching as Isaac approached her, and for some reason he felt worried. He grabbed a small bottle of strange purple liquid. Don't ask what's in it. Next morning, Nadia was back in training, looking like she'd been run over. Duke suddenly appeared and commented on her condition. They talked about the duel. She only needed one proper hit to win, and he admitted he didn't expect it to go this far. That tiny hint of worry in his voice made Nadia melt. Leaning on her training equipment, she blurted out, dead serious, that his eyes were so beautiful they looked like they held a galaxy of stars. Duke froze. Was she seriously saying that without even blinking? He didn't finish his thought. Something about her being really something. Before she asked if he found her repulsive. He denied it, but she immediately asked for another favor. As long as it wasn't a marriage proposal, he'd consider it. Her request? Permission to use his bath after training. He agreed instantly and even gave her that purple liquid, mint, lemon, and wine, to help with the dry mouth training always gave him. Nadia was touched and promised to repay him with a win. Duke doubted it, but offered her an extra hour of training each day. She burst into tears, not because she was offended, but because she thought this was basically a love confession. He quickly clarified she wasn't obligated to accept, but she jumped in with an eager yes before he could finish. He warned he wasn't a lenient teacher, but she confidently said she wouldn't regret it. Fast forward to the next day. She regretted it. Shaking from exhaustion, she was told to give another 30 hits in blocks. She hesitated, so he barked at her to move. She ran. She hit. Julianne kept spritzing her with floral perfume, and Nadia mentally cursed herself for ever saying yes. She collapsed, gasping, heart pounding. He asked if she was giving up. She said no. Then stand up, he said. She couldn't. Didn't matter, he still told her to stand. She glared at him from the ground, silently swearing. And just like that, the duel was now only one day away.